Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Divya. Welcome to Visual Vibes. In this Python course, I'm gonna teach you everything that you need to learn to start coding with Python. This course doesn't cost you anything, it's totally free for you. But if you would like to help me out, then you can increase its reach by hitting a like button, leave a random comment down below, share, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thanks in advance, and I really appreciate it. Without getting any delay, let's jump right in. Let's see about functions in Python in our today's session. So before I head into the topic, I would like to mention you one thing. If this is your first visit to my channel or if you are new to the Python course, then I would like to recommend you to check out the previous sessions of this video first and then get back here for a better and clear understanding before getting into the new concept as well as to follow some sequence. So let me start with the main topic, functions in Python. Almost in every programming, we have the concept of functions. So functions in Python are simply the reusable blocks of code that are used to perform some specific tasks according to our requirement. So instead of writing the same code again and again multiple times in our program, so you can simply define the function once and you can call it whenever needed. Let's say, for example, if you want to handle two scenarios, let's say one scenario is about where you need to provide the username based on the ID provided by the user. Whereas in second case, you need to fetch the account balance of the user based on the account number provided by the user. So in order to handle these cases, these kind of cases, you can simply define two functions so that serves individual functionality. So by making use of these functions, you can break the complex scenarios or complex programs into smaller parts that makes the code very easier and understandable. So we have mainly three types of functions: built-in functions, user-defined functions, and Lambda functions. So built-in functions are the ones that are usually provided by the Python. So which we can simply make use of these functions by calling them by importing from those particular modules. Whereas user-defined functions are the ones that we're gonna define with the help of syntax defined by the Python. And the Lambda functions are simple and small anonymous functions which we can make use of for smaller operations, which is usually defined with the Lambda keyword. And we will know about these Lambda functions in our upcoming sessions. So we have already seen in our previous sessions some of the built-in functions. Like, let's say, for example, we have seen print and range functions, and we're gonna see some more built-in functions in our upcoming sessions as well. So in our today's session, we are going to see user-defined functions, like how we can create these user-defined functions in our code and how we can make use of it very well. Let's see it's a syntax. So this is the syntax for the definition or to define a function. So function definition always starts with the def keyword followed by the function name and followed by the parenthesis inside which we need to pass the parameters to this function. So these parameters can be any number of parameters, so which are separated by comma, and this statement is going to end with the colon at the end of the statement. And inside this function statement, we're gonna have a block or a set of statements that will go inside. And finally followed by the return statement. We may have return statement or we may not have return statement. So this is all about how we can define the function. And simply defining a function itself is not important, right? So we can make use of the function by calling it. So this is how you can call the functions by providing the function name within the parentheses. So we need to pass the arguments, values of the arguments. So whatever the function name we have, we have defined while creating the function, the same name with the same name, we need to call the function by passing some arguments within the parentheses. So this is about the syntax for a function definition as well as for calling functions. Now let's see the example of the function. So here you can see, right, I have defined the function with the def keyword followed by the function name and the parenthesis. So which is ended with the colon at the end of the statement. And inside this function, I have the set of or block of code which I am printing some message, welcome to Python. So this is about the function definition. Here I'm not passing any parameters. This is a simple function definition. This is a simple example I'm gonna show you. So in our upcoming slides, we're gonna see in detail how we can pass the parameters and how we can pass the arguments while calling the function in detail. And in the third line, if you can see, I'm calling the function with the name which I was defined in the first line. So I have defined a function with the name my underscore function. So say with that same name, I'm calling the function with the help of function name followed by the parenthesis. Since in the function definition we have not any parameter, we don't have any parameters. So here also while calling the function, I'm not passing any parameters. So this is the simple example I have given. Now let's see parameters versus arguments. So in our earlier example, we have seen the syntax, right? Like in the function definition, we are passing the parameters wherever in the function, while calling the function, we are passing the arguments. So here, if you can see the difference between the parameters and arguments, parameters are simply the names that we need to provide in the function definition. Whereas arguments are simply nothing but the values that we're gonna supply whenever we call a function. So parameters are the ones that we're gonna use in the function definition, whereas arguments are the ones that we're gonna use or we need to pass while calling the function. So this is the syntax along with the parameters and arguments. So here also function definition is started with the def keyword followed by the function name. Inside the parenthesis, we're gonna pass the parameters, whichever we're gonna use the parameters inside the function. So those parameters need to be passed inside to this function inside these parameters, and that parameters we can call as parameters or variables. And inside the function, some set or block of code that will go. And this is the syntax where we need to provide the function name, where we need to provide the function name by passing the arguments within the parenthesis. So now let's see the example of it with the parameters as well as arguments. So here also I had defined the function named my function followed by the def keyword by passing the parameter name as name followed by the colon at the end of the statement. And inside the function, I was trying to print one message, hello, comma, name, like whatever the value that I will receive into this function. So that value I want to print it here. So outside the function, I'm calling the function name. I'm calling the function. So this is my function, named my function. So within the parentheses, whatever the parameter that I want to pass to this function, that value I need to pass it here. So I want to, since I'm gonna print the value of name, so I want to pass the value of name while calling the function. So I'm passing the John value here. So whenever I call this function, so this value will be passed to this function definition, and this parameter can be accessed inside this function. So that we can see the hello John in the output as like this. Now let's see about return statement in Python. So return statement is the one which is usually used inside the function, mainly to end the execution of the function and to return the value of the expression or some value to the caller. So inside the return statement, let's see, before we see the example, let me tell you the rules that we need to use, we need to follow while using this return statement in Python. So return statement is always used outside of the function. And the statements whichever are not executed, the statements whichever defined after the return statement are usually not executed. So the statements whichever there before return statement, only those statements will be executed. And the statements which are there after the return statement are usually not executed. And if we don't have the return statement within a function or without expression, then special value called none is returned back to the function. So here you can see the example of the return statement, the use of return statement. So here I've defined one function named my function, and within that function I have some block of code wherein I was printing some message inside function, and after that block of code I was giving the return value. So whatever the value I want to return back to the user or to the function call, I need to return that value. So here I want to return some message like hello John. So whenever in the fifth line I was calling this function my underscore function, whenever calling this function, so it will come to this function, like it will call this function. Inside this function, we have the print statement. So first of all, it will print this statement, and then finally it will return this output. So that we have the hallogen in the output. So here you can see, right, the statement in the second line. So is before the return statement. So that's why whenever we call this function, so this print statement will be executed, and then finally the value will be returned back to the user. So suppose if we give this print statement after the return statement means, then we will not see this print statement in the terminal. It will not print this message because every statement should be before return statements only, like whatever the functionality or the cases that we need to handle within the function, we need to handle before the return statement only. Whereas the name itself, it is saying like it is the one that is used to end the execution of the statements within that function. And this is about the return statement in function. Now let's see the categories or the types that we have inside the function for a function. So we have mainly 4 types of categories when it comes to function. Like first category is about function not returning a value along with no parameter passing. And the second one is about function not returning a value but with parameter passing. Third one is about function returning a value but no parameter passing. And the fourth one is about function returning a value and parameter passing. Now let's see these categories in detail. The first one is about function not returning a value and no parameter passing. Function not returning a value means we don't have any return statement, as well as no parameter passing means we don't have any, we don't need to pass any parameters while calling the function. So here if you can see this example where I was define one function named my underscore function. So within the parenthesis, I'm not passing any parameters. And within this function, I'm going to print one statement that is welcome to Python. And we don't have a return statement also after this second line. So while calling the function, also I'm not passing any parameters. So this is a simple example wherein we are not using any return statement as well as with no parameters passing. And second category is about function not returning a value, but with parameter passing. So not returning a value means usually we don't have return statement, but with parameter passing means that we need to pass some parameters, like whatever the parameter that we're gonna use within that function, we need to pass those parameters while function definition, and we need to pass the arguments while function call. So here you can see we have a function named my function wherein we have the parameter named name, and inside this function I am printing the message saying hello, comma name. So in place of this name variable, the actual value or the argument that is coming while calling a function will be replaced, and that will print in the output. So whenever I call this function by passing this argument, so this argument is passed to this function and this statement will be printed. Now let's see the third one, function returning a value but no parameter passing. So function returning a value means we must have the return keyword or return statement that should be defined within the function along with the no parameters. So here you can see in the example for the function name my function, we don't have any parameters within the parenthesis, but inside the function we have the return statement wherein I was returning some message to the user, or I can say function while function call is happening. So I want to return. So I'm returning some value back. So here in the fourth line I was calling this function with no parameters passing. So whenever this function is called, so this statement will execute, this function will be executed, and within this function we have the return statement. So this value is returned back. So whenever it is returned back, so it comes here and then it will print the statement. So welcome to Python. Similarly, the last category is about function returning a value and parameter passing. Here we have both scenarios, like where we are returning value along with the parameters passing. So here we have the function name my function wherein we have a parameter name inside within the parenthesis, and within the function I am printing some message saying hello name, hello comma name. This name will be replaced by the argument that will come whenever the function call is open. So finally I'm calling this function by passing the argument value to this function. So whenever this John value is passed to this function, so it will come inside this function, and then finally it will print this statement. So that we can see hello John in the output. So this is a small about functions. So we have a lot when we want to talk about functions, and don't worry, I'm going to cover everything in our upcoming sessions. But for today's session, this is about functions like. So that's all for today. I hope you like this session. If you have any doubts, feel free to post them in the comment section. We'll definitely answer your questions, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care, goodbye, and enjoy programming.